Battle over Planned Parenthood could lead to a government shutdown. Some Republicans in Congress are demanding that no more of our tax dollars go to that group. And other Republican leaders are trying to avoid closing down the government.
President Obama and other Democrats are adamantly opposed to defunding Planned Parenthood. And so far, it looks like a compromise could be hard to find. George Thomas has the story.
We are going to have a time of prayer.
The political firestorm over abortion is back, and those gruesome Planned Parenthood videos are once again taking center stage.
Anyone who has watched this videotape, I dare Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama to watch these tapes. Watch a fully formed fetus on the table, its heart beating, its legs kicking, while someone says we have to keep it alive to harvest its brain. This is about the character of our nation. And if we will not stand up and force President Obama to veto this bill, shame on us.
And now the chances of a government shutdown over taxpayer money going to Planned Parenthood are rising. Some conservatives in Congress say they will not support a spending bill to keep the government open unless that funding is cut off.
As the procedure is happening, the procedure itself.
The controversy erupted this summer when 10 undercover videos emerged showing Planned Parenthood officials discussing the sale of the body parts of aborted babies. Planned Parenthood says the videos are a smear campaign. Still, the House votes today on several bills, including one that freezes funding to the nation's largest abortion provider for a year while Congress investigates the group's activities. And the Senate plans to take up the issue as well. House Speaker John Boehner says the goal is to stop these grisly practices, but admitted it will be difficult to get the bills through the Senate. At the White House, spokesman Josh Earnest said the president will veto any bill that defunds Planned Parenthood. Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he's confident there won't be a government shutdown, but people on both sides don't show any signs of backing down. George Thomas, CBN News.
Well, I hope this doesn't get to a government shutdown. I actually think that would not be good for the nation. What we need is to put a bill forward, have an up and down vote on should federal tax dollars go to Planned Parenthood, and force a veto, force a vote, and then go have an election and win some races just based on that vote. If we do that, we'll get them on the record. Otherwise, you're into this politics game of, do we want to continue paying for our military? Do we want to continue paying Social Security checks? Those kinds of things. And if you put all of that at risk, then the message won't be clear as to what is the vote and what is the vote on. So let's have a straight up and down just on Planned Parenthood. If you want to join in this discussion, do so. You can go to Facebook, and there'll be a place there where you can be part of the ongoing discussion. Well, in other news, Kim Davis has lost another appeal in her case involving same-sex marriage licenses in Kentucky. Charlene Aaron has that story from the CBN Newsroom. Charlene?
Gordon, Davis was trying to delay issuing those gay marriage licenses, but the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals said she has to grant marriage licenses to all couples, not just to those who filed a lawsuit against her. Those couples received their licenses while Davis was in jail for refusing to obey a judge's order to do so. And Davis is not the only government official who has refused to issue same-sex marriage licenses, and the tension and battle between religious freedom and gay marriage is far from over. Paul Strand has that story.
Since the Supreme Court ruled gay marriage is now legal across the U.S., some activists are trying to make some opposition to same-sex marriage itself illegal.
For years, those campaigning for same-sex marriage said there was no way it could hurt their opponents or believers in traditional marriage. But now, here's a book claiming that that harm is already being seen.
It's Truth Overruled, The Future of Marriage and Religious Freedom, from Ryan Anderson of the Heritage Foundation.
The main rhetoric that we've heard from the past decade from those in favor of redefining marriage was that if you're against same-sex marriage, you're just like the racist bigots who were against interracial marriage. And we're already seeing voices say the government should now treat people who believe marriage is the union of a man and a woman as if they're racists.
And Anderson looks at business owners already being punished for not actively supporting gay marriage, or at least serving gay couples.
The fourth chapter of the book's titled Bake Me a Cake, Bigot, and it tells the story of all of these professionals who simply asked to be left alone from the government, by the government, to run their business in accordance with their beliefs. And they've been fined sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Eric Erickson, editor-in-chief of the popular Red State blog, says the fact that Anderson is clearly young is striking and meaningful.
Younger, which is counterintuitive because people perceive it as being a generational issue. So here's this young guy who has a mastery of these issues and the implications for the future of the country.
Anderson says his fight to punish people is a serious threat to freedom. He says he actually doesn't know what he'd advise a person trying to decide to bake or not bake a gay wedding cake.
The government's role shouldn't be telling them what to do either. So my position on this is whether you would bake the cake or not isn't a reason for you telling someone else that they should have to bake the cake. Freedom should actually be what's reigning supreme here, and the people who are in favor of baking the cake can bake the cake, those who aren't cannot bake the cake, and the market can sort these things out. It's one of the beauties of freedom.
Even before it was published, Erickson says gay rights activists orchestrated a campaign on Amazon.com to destroy Truth Overruled. He said on RedState.com that such folks won't tolerate any opposition to gay marriage. Erickson wrote they cannot have that. They also cannot have books and data that dispute their claims.
The fact that they've attacked his book on Amazon, trying to discourage people from buying it. Before it even came out, they were trying to drive down its ranking on Amazon so people wouldn't buy it. Just tells you everything you need to know about the contents of the book.
Although it's difficult to say which criticisms are legitimate disagreements and which are orchestrated, clearly many people took strong shots at the book. Some of the critics on Amazon wrote, "This is a sad and desperate book written by a sad and desperate man clutching at any straw that will enable him to justify what in the end is simply homophobia." And, "It really is time for you religious zealots to move on."
It was people who didn't even want a dissenting voice to be heard. And so they were trying to sink the book by leaving these, many of them were nasty reviews. One review went up with a picture of Holocaust victims, saying that this book was the functional equivalent of Nazi propaganda.
But the young author isn't a bit surprised at the tactics used against him.
The left didn't win this debate by convincing people of the goodness of redefining marriage. It won this debate by silencing people and then getting the courts to overrule the people.
But the campaign doesn't seem to be working. Supporters of the book still far outnumber its attackers.
Advocates for traditional marriage believe just because the court has ruled against their position doesn't mean truth has actually changed. And no amount of shouting it down is going to change that. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
The massive wave of illegal migrants entering Europe has changed directions as hundreds of families continue to flee from war and religious persecution in the Middle East. Instead of trying to go through Hungary, the migrants are now looking for alternative routes to Germany, and some of them are becoming desperate and violent, confronting police at the borders of Hungary and Croatia. Gary Ling brings us this story from the Hungarian border.
Chaos at the edge of Europe as Hungarian police respond with tear gas, stopping rioting migrants from storming through a border fence.
Baby, gazik, baby.
These migrants camped out on the Serbian side of the border after Hungary closed the crossing earlier this week. Instead of seeking legal access or alternative routes to Germany, some demanded immediate access to Hungary.
We came, our goal is to cross the border. Yeah, we will stay here until we cross the border. There is no alternative.
Hungary closed its borders because it requires prior approval and processing to enter the country. Hungarian border police have stepped up their patrols to stop illegal entry, and even Hungarian army troops are helping secure their country's border. As you can see, there are still some unfinished gaps in this 100-mile fence along the Serbian-Hungarian border. But I don't think anyone's going to dare try to get through here because look at this razor wire. That would cut them all up. Many migrants are seeking an alternative route, traveling through Serbia and illegally entering Croatia. From there, many hope to go on to Austria and finally cross into Germany. Zoltan Kovacs is Hungarian government spokesman.
What we are trying to do is to fulfill our duty to defend Hungary's and therefore the Schengen zone's borders, apply the rule of law as it should be applied by all other member states. And as a matter of fact, we are being criticized for doing that.
The 29 European Union states require migrants to be registered at the first EU point of entry. Greece has not done that, so Hungary and now Croatia are attempting to do so. Also, while some states in the EU allow open travel, countries on the periphery, like Hungary and Croatia, must check migrants before they can cross into those areas. Kovacs believes Hungary has gotten a bad rap. He says his country is simply following the rules and protecting Europe.
The sheer number is a security risk, and especially that these people are coming from conflict zones. You never know, even if they are fleeing for their life, whether they have fought before in a civil war in Iraq or in Syria. Obviously, this is a very, very serious security risk.
European leaders plan to meet soon to discuss emergency measures, including possible migration quotas for each member state. Gary Lane, CBN News, Ruske, Hungary.
Operation Blessing is on the scene in the crisis in Europe, helping to bring relief to refugees who have fled from the Middle East to places like Hungary. Operation Blessing is providing refugees in Hungary with critical supplies, meeting their most urgent needs with food and plastic tarps to help them stay warm, especially as the weather is becoming cold and rainy, which could cause widespread illness throughout those camps. Gordon?
Well, this is obviously a complicated issue. There's an obvious security issue here. Are there ISIS fighters within the refugee population? Are there radicals in their midst trying to slip in? At the same time, there's a human cost here, and there are families here, there are children here, and we want to help them. And if you want to be a part of it, providing needed food, water, these plastic tarps, you can be a part of it by just calling us. 1-800-759-0700. Say, I want to give to the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. You can also write us, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Do it now. Call us now, 1-800-759-0700.